is Nan McKay, and I would like to introduce you today to Elaine Williams. In the diverse landscape of the entertainment and the coaching industry, few figures embody versatility and charisma quite like Elaine Williams. As a veteran comedian with credits on illustrious platforms like Saturday Night Live and America's Got Talent, Elaine has crafted laughter and joy through her remarkable talent. Yet her journey didn't stop there. Leveraging her formidable experience from over 40 years in theater, film, TV, and stand-up comedy, Elaine transformed into a beacon of empowerment in the world of public speaking and video coaching. Whether helping novices blossom into YouTube sensations or steering seasoned professionals toward international book tours, Elaine's blend of humor, insight, and steadfast guidance has indeed turned her clients from awkward to awesome. As we settle in for a conversation with this comedic speaker, best-selling author, and transformational coach, prepare to be enthralled by the narratives of a woman who's not only carved out an illustrious career, but has dedicated herself to elevating others to reach similar heights. So welcome, Elaine.
Wow, Nan. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. I'm like, who is that? Oh, that's me. Wow, cool. Thank you.
Elaine was such an extensive and vibrant career spanning comedy and acting and now coaching. Could you share with us the journey that led you from being a comedian and performer to becoming a sought-after video and speaker coach?
Sure. I mean, I'll try to do like the shorter version of it. When I was 6, no, I'm just kidding. So I moved to New York to pursue musical theater. I did theater my whole life growing up in Texas, and I loved singing and dancing and voiceover. And I was always, I was in a modern dance company. I did stuff at UT Austin. I was at Hyde Park Theater but I always, New York called to me, you know what I mean? I would see that skyline and my heart would go pit-a-pat, and I thought, I'm supposed to be there. And so I moved to New York and got sober all at the same time, which I would never recommend because it was really hard. They're like, don't change anything. And I had to keep moving and temping. And how much is water? What? Like, New York City, it's expensive. And then I was auditioning and I had this, like, I got to make up for lost time, because I was like newly sober and I was already so intense, and people would be like, you need to calm. When New Yorkers tell you you're too intense, it's like, whoa, And so luckily, so many people kept saying, you should take improv. You should lighten up, really. Because, at the end of the day, if you've got 100 people auditioning for this part, 50 of them are super talented, 40 of them are not crazy. So at the end of the day, who do you want to be stuck on a set with for 16 hours? Not somebody who's so intense, right? That you want to be able to be with somebody who can, work together and not be crazy. So anyway, that's how I fell into comedy. I took improv class, and then people kept saying, you got to do stand-up, you got to do stand-up. And then I fell into stand-up comedy. And luckily I was doing my Debbie Ford training at the same time, Nan, because I needed that emotional, it takes a lot, that emotional resilience, because you get up and you're like so excited about a joke and it's crickets, or you're so excited about your set and then some drunk person messes it up. Comedy is like this precious thing, and it can easily be screwed up. So it takes a lot of resilience and stamina to keep going. And so I really credit a lot of my personal development stuff like Landmark, Peak Potentials. And then I worked with Debbie Ford for 5 years as I was starting my comedic journey. And I'm so grateful because I needed both. I really needed both. And so that's really I knew okay, I love the arts. I love coaching people. I don't know how to make this work, but I knew that was my path, even though I didn't fully understand it. So I would tell people listening, if you feel really called to do something, even if you don't understand it, do it. Even if you're like, I don't know what I'm doing or how am I ever going to make money at this? Just keep doing it. If it speaks to your heart, like I just knew I had to keep getting on stage. I didn't, and people kept saying, maybe you're supposed to be motivational. And I was like, I don't know. And I just kept getting on stage. And so that was part of my journey. And I forget to talk about that. So thank you. Thank you for the question.
Well, it was fascinating. With your rich background in really various forms of performing arts, how do you blend that experience from theater, film, TV, and stand-up comedy? How do you blend that into your coaching to help transform your clients into captivating speakers?
Well, your questions are good. One of the things I use humor with everything because I help people just pattern interrupt. I just got through teaching my program and I love to make them giggle and I'm like, do it again. And by the third time they're laughing and they're like, oh yeah, now you're showing up as you. So, but it is challenging, Nan. And I'll tell you sometimes, when you're doing comedy, you're like, here's the joke and here's the laugh. Here's the story and here's the laugh. You get feedback and you're used to getting it at a certain, and so every once in a while when I'm doing a speech, I will have a moment where I'm panicking inside, like, oh my God, they're not laughing. And I have to go, Elaine, you're speaking, you're not doing stand up. They're listening. Because sometimes the audience is really quiet because they're listening, like they're so with you. So every once in a while, I have to remember gear change. It's not perfect, and sometimes it feels very messy and very ungraceful. But I really try to get grounded and centered before each thing that I do, and so that helps a lot too.
Well, it's interesting to think about. How you're doing stand-up comedy, you're probably in kind of where they're kind of maybe dark out in front of you. Yes. And sitting at tables. This is what I'm visualizing, and probably clanking their glasses, not real quiet. And then you go to a place where you're speaking, and I can see what you're saying. It's like, oh my God, are they still out there?
Right.
and listening. Oh no, listening.
Yes, it's so funny. And comedy clubs, they want the ceiling low, they want it dark, and they want you packed in there because there's something about the energy of the laughter and the joke. And it's really, when you have the right club, it is so powerful. It's like you tell a joke and there's a wave of laughter. And it is like one of the most amazing feelings. And on the other hand, if you're in a big ballroom with a lot of space, it's like a comedy moat. It's where people go to die, So whenever I produced, I would be like, no, I got to have the tables closer. I was constantly fighting with people no, we got to bring the tables closer. I don't want the moat. I don't want the dance floor. This is not dancing. This is comedy. So, there's a lot of educating. I'll never forget one time I did a gig in Abilene, Texas, Nan, and it was a country biker bar with a dance floor, and they had a stripper in the back. It was the craziest thing. And there was just a huge moat. And I remember I was freaking out. And my boyfriend at the time, who was the headliner, he goes, Elaine, this is the kind of gig you just get through it. Just get through it. And I was like, oh God, and then luckily there's always a couple of good souls in the front that you just totally play to. Meanwhile, there's a stripper in the back bar. I mean, it was just crazy what happened.
You're probably thinking, well, to get attention, do I have to take off my clothes or what?
Yeah. Oh God, that's funny, but not maybe in the way it means to be.
Let's talk about your TV pilot. It was Room for Improvement.
Yes.
And it encapsulates your life as a landlord, a comic, and a speaker. Could you delve into what inspired that project?
Oh gosh, Nan, you do your homework. This is so exciting. So a friend of mine was working on a comedy show. And so it was really fun. We were always talking about ideas. And I had a writer friend, Chip Ambrosio, and we kept saying, yeah, Elaine, you're like the worst landlord. Like you go to Ohio, you get standing ovations. You come back to New Jersey, you can't get your tenants to take out their damn trash. And, here I am. I have this 3-family house, and it was really hard for me to learn how to be a landlord. And half the time I was like working in the city or running to auditions or running to comedy or going to do a speaking thing. So it was very, do you ever look back in your life and you're like, how did I do what I did? But you keep going. You just keep going, and then you go to Home Depot, and then you go to the gym, and you go to Trader Joe's, and then you go to yoga, and you do it again the next day, right?
And then you get on a plane.
And then you get on a plane, and then you have no sleep. And so we had this idea of my friends come be my tenants, and it was hilarious. And we, had different situations where I had like a tenant who was like naked in the laundry room, and another tenant who was like crazy, and another person who acted like my agent. And anyway, so we kind of hodgepodge this together. I didn't know what I was doing. It was completely from my gut and my heart. And we submitted, and we made it as semi-finalists into the New York TV Festival. And Nan, I was so excited. And I remember going and thinking, okay, if they're trying to pitch me something, I'm leaving. Or if they do the LA thing, where I'm leaving. Anyway, we met the coolest people. We were this close to a meeting. And basically the feedback was, can you redo it and make it better? So we reshot it, a lot more money, with real tenants, which I would never recommend, but that's what I did. So anyway, it didn't make it the next year, but I was so grateful for the whole experience. I learned so much. And we got to be in rooms with the head execs from all the networks. And you know what they all said? We don't know what we were doing. If we knew how to make a hit every time, don't you think we would? Keep being creative, keep coming up with things, because we're always looking for new ideas and new talent. Now, it's scary because when you submit something, you have to sign a release, and it feels like, oh my God, they could steal my idea, which happens a lot. But, I'm still grateful for the whole experience. And I just finally had to put a couple, you could spend thousands and thousands and thousands shooting stuff. And I was like, look, until I get like a sponsor or a boyfriend who actually has money, I need to, put the brakes on this. But it was a great experience. It was really fun.
Oh, it sounds like fun too, but it could get expensive. I mean, really expensive. So you're
Crews, lighting, yeah, it adds
Yeah.
up quickly. Yeah.
Over your career, you've spoken at a lot of community or college campuses around the US. Can you share some standout moments that you might have had, or maybe experience from your time speaking at institutions like Notre Dame and UT Austin and Kent State?
Oh, sure. One of my favorite, every single gig, you learn something, even the ones that were really rough. And I got to go speak at historically Black colleges, and I always felt very privileged that they picked me. And it was really an honor to be there. And I'm so grateful for all of those experiences. And I got to speak at St. Joseph in Brooklyn. And I'll never forget, this young woman came up to me, and it was a very, kind of a diverse community at this college. And she came up to me and she said, hearing your story and meeting you was better than 5 years of therapy for me.
Mm.
And she and I stayed in touch, and I helped her not cut herself and helped her get to see a different therapist. And, and just like those moments that you have with a student is like, oh, or like, I'll never forget, I was in Iowa, and it was like me and the corn, like I'm driving, it's just me and the corn, which was very kind of spiritual. And I had a day where I'm like doing a 10 o'clock, a 2 o'clock, and then an 8 o'clock, which that's a lot, right? But so one was for the students, one was for the teachers, and then the 8 o'clock was for the students who couldn't come. So by the time I got to the 8 o'clock, I was like, what? I was just like in the zone. I was tired, but I was like in a delirious kind of way. And there were lots of students who came back. So it was standing room only. And I just remember feeling like I was channeling, like I was so funny, I was motivational, I was like, it was totally, even though I was on part of my script, I was so in the moment and with the kids, and it was just like a communion of love. And I wish I had taped it because I was like on fire. But that was one of my most fun experiences, when they come back and it's standing room only and you're like, oh my gosh, wow. Oh, that was
Now, you have worked with Diane Forster, right?
Foster, yes.
Foster or Forster? And is she the person that has a TV show?
No.
No, somebody different. Okay. Well, you worked with energy coach Diane Foster,
Yes.
and she praised your ability to transform her from awkward to awesome on camera. So could you share with us some key strategies or tips that you use or that you usually suggest to people
Oh, sure.
who are starting out with live video or?
Absolutely. So the thing is that studios can be intimidating, right? If you're used to like, I can do Zoom and all of a sudden you're on a set and there's all these people and crew and equipment, and it can feel very daunting. And so I always say, you want to stay grounded, take deep breaths, make sure you have water, room temperature water, and really connect with another human being. So one time I was on a set and I was friends with the host. We had several pre-interview things, and the crew was like, we're not ready. And, and I know for me, if I'm sitting there waiting, I start to get in my head. I start to melt. I start to think, oh my God, why did I wear these shoes? Oh God, I feel, all that self-deprecating, not good stuff. And so I said to the crew, hey, I'm going to talk to her, but whenever you guys are ready, please interrupt us so that we can go. But I don't want to just sit here watching you, because I knew it would put me in my head. So that is a great tip, is like connect with another human being or stay quiet, whatever's going to work for you. And another thing is, if you're waiting to be on camera, move, breathe. A lot of times we hold our breath, which makes us more nervous. So I'm a big fan of like, take a deep breath, do some head rolls, do some shoulder rolls, walk around. It's okay to go. It's not very sexy, but it's a great way for you to stay on your breath.
Good idea. Your efforts in charity, and now we're talking about your participation in the New York City Marathon and fundraising, are truly commendable. How do you feel these experiences have maybe shaped or influenced your journey, both professionally and personally?
Well, I think it's very important to give back, Nan. I'm in AA for 24 years. And one of the things of the 12-step world is you have to be giving back. You have to be doing service. And one of my mentors, Mike Young, who just passed, he was one of the founding owners of Chewy's in Austin. He started a children giving to children parade years and years and years ago. And it was one of my first times to be a volunteer clown. And I remember the experience was so cool. And it was just cool to be a part of something bigger than myself, and just the idea of giving back. And that really stayed with me. And I've done charity bike rides, and I've done so many comedy shows to raise money and awareness for causes. And I love doing it. I'm like, you got a cause, let's do it. All right. And I've gotten people to donate their time and their theater and promo, because there's just so many people who need help. So why not?
Giving it back or passing it on is so important.
Yeah.
As somebody who's been honored for her work with the military and their families, what insights or perspectives have you gained through your engagements at Fort Drum and Nellis Air Force Base? And how do those experiences resonate in your current role as coach and speaker?
Wow. So I used to do comedy up in this town called Sackett's Harbor that was right on the border. It's so close to Canada, and it's right by Fort Drum. And I got to know these waitresses, and they were military wives. And I wish I had recorded them, because one night after the show, they were just talking about how challenging their life is and how they're basically like single mothers for 8, 10, 12 months of the year. And how most people have no idea what military families go through, the sacrifices, all that stuff. And so we started talking, and I was like, oh my God, let's put on a show, you know? And so it was such an amazing experience to get to, and they honored me, which I was not used to. And they had a big lunch for me, and they gave me all these plaques, and I got to have lunch with the colonel, which I didn't realize was a big deal. And so that was really cool. And, you know, just, it really helped me realize that the military does so much that we don't know that they do. And every time I see somebody now, I'm like, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. So I'm grateful that I got to have a little bit of knowledge. And Nellis Air Force Base, that was a tough gig. It was a very tough gig. My agent had told me it was going to be young recruits, and it wasn't. It was all different kinds. And my slides froze, and, you know, it was one of those really sweaty things, but I got through it, and people were gracious. But yeah, you just never know what you're walking into sometimes.
That's very true. Well, this has been so much fun talking to you. Where can people reach you? Give us your marketing spiel here.
Okay.
What can you offer? You know, what do you do?
So Instagram, Elaine Williams Fun. That's the easiest way to find me. And my company is Captivate the Crowd. And if you want to have a checklist about how to be captivating on camera, go to captivatethecrowd.com and you can grab your checklist right there. I also have a free Facebook group, Captivate the Crowd. If you want to come practice, it's a safe space to come play in the realm of video. And I offer one-on-one coaching for people who want to work on their keynotes, or they want private video stuff. I also have group programs, and I'm starting to teach improv, because I think that is a great way to access play and fun. And it can help with your speaking, with your videos, with your relationships, lots of things.
That sounds fantastic. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us and telling us all about your life. We appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Nan. You had great questions. So it was really a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.